Good evening, dear listeners. Settle in now. Pull the blanket a little closer. Let your shoulders drop. Tonight, we are going somewhere very far away, not in miles, in time. We are going back through centuries, back through the slow turning of civilizations, through the rise and fall of empires, through sand and sea and silence. Tonight, we visit the 7 wonders of the ancient world. 7 things built by human hands that were so extraordinary, so unlike anything else the world had seen, that people stopped and wrote them down. People wanted to remember them. They wanted to say, "This existed. Someone made this," and it was astonishing. Most of these wonders are gone now, taken by earthquakes, by time, by the slow patience of wind and water. Only one still stands, but gone does not mean lost. Their stories remain, and tonight, those stories are yours. Close your eyes if you like. Let the words carry you. Before we begin, let yourself arrive. There is no hurry tonight, nowhere to be, nothing to solve. The day is behind you now, all of it. The things that went well, the things that did not. The long list of small worries. Let them set down their weight, one by one. Feel the surface beneath you, the way it holds you completely, asking nothing in return. Feel how your body is already heavier than it was a moment ago. We are about to travel a very long way, across deserts and seas, across thousands of years, to stand before things that human hands once built, and human eyes once wept to see. You do not need to remember any of it. You do not need to follow closely. Let the words move past you like warm water, and let yourself drift wherever they carry you. The journey is slow. That is the point. So breathe in, gently, and out, and let us begin to wander. Imagine the desert at dawn. The sky is pale, not yet blue, not quite night. A thin line of rose stretches along the horizon to the east, where the sun is still deciding whether to rise. The air is cool, dry. It smells of dust and something older, something the wind has carried for thousands of years across the sand. And there, rising from the plateau, is the pyramid. It does not announce itself. It simply is, enormous and still, a mountain made by men. Its sides catch the early light and hold it, the stone almost glowing, as if it remembers the heat of every day it has stood here. It has stood here for 4,500 years. This is the Great Pyramid of Giza, the oldest of the 7 wonders, the only one still standing, built for a pharaoh named Khufu at a time when Egypt was at the height of its power, when pharaohs were considered living gods, and a pyramid was not simply a tomb, it was a staircase, a passage between this world and the next. It took 20 years to build, 20 years of organized effort, of tens of thousands of workers, not slaves, as people once believed, but skilled craftsmen, engineers, quarrymen, men who ate bread and drank beer and were paid for their labor, men who called their work gangs, things like Friends of Khufu, and carved their names in the hidden stones. The pyramid contains more than 2 million blocks of limestone. Each one weighs, on average, 2.5 tons. Some of the granite blocks deep inside weigh 80 tons, and yet they were fitted together with such precision that you cannot slide a sheet of paper between them. Pause for a moment with that. No electricity, no steel machinery, no computers, just stone and rope and wood, and the steady intelligence of people who understood their materials completely. Inside the pyramid, there are chambers, a king's chamber lined with red granite, still smooth to the touch, a grand gallery rising steeply in the dark, a corridor 47 meters long, nearly 9 meters high, its ceiling corbelled inward like the hull of an upturned ship. And at the heart of the king's chamber, a stone sarcophagus, empty. Khufu's mummy was never found. No one knows where it went. Perhaps stolen in antiquity, perhaps hidden somewhere in the stone, in a space we have not yet found. In 2017, scientists using cosmic rays, particles raining invisibly from space, detected a large void above the Grand Gallery, a space at least 30 meters long, still sealed, still unknown. The pyramid keeps its secrets, and perhaps that is part of why we cannot stop thinking about it. 4,500 years of human history have happened while this structure stood and watched. Empires rose around it and crumbled. Languages were born and died. And still the pyramid waits, patient as stone has always been patient, for someone to understand it fully. The desert wind moves across its surface. The stars wheel slowly overhead. Here we leave the pyramid, the only wonder that time could not touch, and we turn now toward a place that may have existed only in imagination, or may have been so beautiful that the world simply forgot how to find it. And so we drift on, away from the desert, into the dark between places. There is no need to hurry the journey. Picture the long miles unfolding slowly beneath a night sky thick with stars, more stars than we ever see now, a great spilled river of light from edge to edge. The sand gives way, little by little, to scrubland, then to the first green smudge of river country far ahead. The air changes as we travel, drier desert wind softening into something that carries water and earth and the faint green smell of growing things still many miles away. There is a particular peace in being between two places, nowhere to arrive just yet, nothing to do but move gently through the dark, carried forward, the way a boat is carried by a slow and patient current. Far ahead, where the two great rivers run, something waits for us, a city on a wide brown plain, and rising from the heart of it, impossibly a mountain of green. But that is still ahead. For now, simply drift, and let the night carry you toward it. There is a city in a dry land. The river runs beside it, wide, slow, brown with silt. The sun falls hard on the flat plains of Mesopotamia, on the mud brick walls, on the dusty streets where traders call out in languages long since silent. But in the center of the city, rising from the rooftops, there is something impossible. Green, living green, terraces climbing one above the other like a mountain grown from a dream. Palm trees, cypress, roses and lilies cascading over the edges of stone platforms. The air here is different, cooler, softer, carrying moisture even in the middle of summer. This is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, built, the old stories say, by King Nebuchadnezzar II for his wife, a princess from the mountains of Media. She'd grown up among green hills, among rivers and forests, and in the dry flatness of Babylon, she grew homesick. So he built her a mountain, a terraced garden rising perhaps 25 meters into the air. Water was lifted from the Euphrates by mechanical devices, screws and wheels turning ceaselessly, and released at the top, flowing downward in thin cascades, keeping the roots of every tree and flower constantly alive. There is a tenderness in this story that is easy to miss. A king, one of the most powerful men alive, looked at the woman he loved and thought, "She misses the mountains. Let me build her mountains." And yet, no one has found them. Not one stone, not one channel, not one root impression in the earth of ancient Babylon has been confirmed as belonging to the gardens. Every other ancient writer who visited Babylon described the city's wonders, its great gate tiled in blue and gold, its massive walls, its towering ziggurat. None of them mention a garden. Some scholars believe the gardens were not in Babylon at all, but in Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, further north. A king there, Sennacherib, boasted in inscriptions of planting trees from conquered lands, of building something that shaded and breathed above the city. Perhaps the Greeks, arriving centuries later, confused the two cities. Perhaps they heard a legend and moved it to the more famous name. Or perhaps the gardens existed exactly as described and simply vanished, leaf by leaf, stone by stone, as the river rose and fell, and the city that held them was forgotten. Some things are beautiful precisely because we cannot be sure they were real. They live in the space between history and dream, and in that space, the gardens are always green, the water always falls, and somewhere in the warm evening air, a queen closes her eyes and thinks of home. Here we leave Babylon, city of legend, city of rivers, and we travel now westward to a coastline where the sea shines, and a temple once stood that made everyone who saw it go very quiet. And so we drift on, westward now, toward the sea. The green of the gardens falls slowly behind us. The land opens out, the air grows lighter, and somewhere ahead, still far off, there is the first faint taste of salt on the wind. The journey carries us over hills gone soft and blue with distance, past olive groves silver in the moonlight, down toward a coastline where the land finally meets the wide and shining water. There is nothing to do but be carried. The miles unwind gently beneath us. The night is warm and patient, and the sea smell grows stronger now, clean and cool and endless. Ahead, on that bright coast, a great temple once stood, a forest of pale columns rising against the morning sky, so beautiful that everyone who came upon it fell silent. We are almost there now. Let the sound of distant waves draw you softly onward. The Aegean Sea in the morning. The water is a particular shade of blue that has no name in most languages, somewhere between gray and green and the color of old glass. The light moves across it in long, slow ripples. Gulls pass overhead without a sound. From the harbor, you can see it from a great distance. The temple. It rises above the city of Ephesus on the western coast of what is now Turkey, surrounded by marble colonnades so dense they look, from far away, like a white forest, 127 columns, each one 18 meters tall, the whole structure longer than a modern football pitch, wider than many cathedrals. It was built for Artemis, goddess of the hunt, of the moon, of wild things, and of childbirth. In Ephesus, she was something older than the Greek version of herself, something more ancient, more powerful. The city was hers. The temple was her house. Inside, it was dim and cool. The columns filtered the sunlight into long, pale bars. At the center stood the statue of the goddess herself, ancient, ornamented, her robes covered in symbols that scholars still argue over. Pilgrims traveled from across the Mediterranean to stand before her. The temple was not only a place of worship, it was a bank, a place of asylum where those in danger could shelter, a repository for treaties and sacred objects from cities that trusted Artemis to keep them safe. The whole structure hummed with the weight of what it held. And then one night, in the year 356 before our common era, a man named Herostratus set fire to it. He wanted to be remembered. He wanted his name to outlast his life. The authorities of Ephesus tried to prevent exactly that. They made it illegal to speak his name. But of course, Pliny the Elder wrote it down anyway, and now we say it. Herostratus, remembered for the worst of reasons. The temple was rebuilt, even larger, even more magnificent. It stood for centuries more, until it was sacked by Goths and then slowly dismantled, its stones carried away to build churches and walls elsewhere. Today, one column stands, assembled from fragments, surrounded by marsh, by grass, by ordinary sky. People visit it and stand quietly. They are looking for something, not the column, the space around it, the air where the white forest used to be. Here we leave Ephesus and its goddess, and we travel now to a valley in Greece, where something once sat that people could not look at without weeping. And so we drift on, across the water now, toward the heart of Greece. The bright coast falls away behind us. The sea carries us gently, the way a current carries a leaf, and ahead, the land rises again. Green hills folding into green hills, rivers threading silver through the valleys between them. There is no need to mark the miles. Let them pass like slow water. The air turns sweet with the smell of pine and warm grass, of earth baked all day by the sun, and now cooling under the first stars. We are moving toward a quiet place, a sacred valley where two rivers meet, where the trees grow old and the light falls soft and gold between the branches. Once, in that valley, something sat in the shadows of a great temple, something so vast, so beautiful, that people who saw it wept without quite knowing why. We are almost there. Let the gentle motion carry you the last of the way. There is a valley in the western Peloponnese where the rivers meet. The Alpheus and the Cladios run together slowly here, their banks thick with willows and plane trees. In summer, the light is golden, heavy and slow, the kind of light that makes everything look slightly sacred. This was Olympia, the sanctuary of Zeus, and every 4 years, for over 1,000 years, athletes came here from every corner of the Greek world to compete in his honor. But most of them, upon entering the great temple, stopped. Because inside was the statue, 12 meters tall, seated, which made it more overwhelming, not less. If Zeus had stood, ancient writers noted, he would have lifted the roof from its foundations. He was carved in ivory and gold, the skin pale as moonlight, the robes hammered from pure gold leaf, catching the light of oil lamps and giving it back tenfold. He held a small figure of Nike, the goddess of victory, in one hand, in the other, a scepter topped with an eagle. His throne was cedar inlaid with ebony and ivory and precious stones, its legs held up by sphinxes, its back decorated with scenes from myth. The sculptor was Phidias, the greatest artist of the ancient world. He had already made the enormous statue of Athena inside the Parthenon. He built a workshop here in Olympia that archaeologists found in the 20th century. Inside it, they found his tools, his clay molds, and a small cup inscribed with the words, "I belong to Phidias." The statue survived for nearly 900 years. Then it was moved to Constantinople, where it was destroyed in a fire. Nothing physical remains, only descriptions, written by people who stood before it and tried to find words. Pausanias, who visited in the 2nd century, said simply that looking at it made you understand why some things in the world are not accidental, that some things were made with a purpose larger than beauty. The ruins of the temple are still there, massive columns of limestone lying on their sides where earthquakes toppled them, like sleeping giants. The ground is green in spring. The rivers still run. And on certain mornings, when the light comes down through the valley at the right angle, you can almost understand what Pausanias meant. Here we leave Olympia and its fallen Colossus, and we move now to a coast in Asia Minor, where a tomb was built with such magnificence that its very name became a word for grandeur. And so we drift on, eastward again, back toward the sea. The quiet valley falls behind us, its gold light fading into the soft blue of evening. We move slowly over the hills and down once more toward the coast, where the land breaks into bays and harbors, and the water lies calm beneath the rising moon. There is nothing to reach for in this in-between time, only the gentle forward drift, the warm night air, the far-off sound of waves folding softly onto a shore not yet in sight. The coast of Asia Minor waits ahead, a city set above its harbor, white stone gleaming faintly in the dark. There, long ago, a queen built something so magnificent that its very name still means grandeur, even now, even in our own tongue. But that is just ahead of us. For now, drift gently on, carried toward the sleeping city by the harbor. The harbor at Halicarnassus. Blue water, warm stone, the smell of salt and cedar from the ships. A trading city, busy, prosperous, cosmopolitan. Greek and Persian and Carian cultures layered together in its streets like sediment in old stone. Here, in the 4th century before our era, a man named Mausoleum ruled. He was a satrap, a governor within the Persian Empire, but one with considerable independence, considerable wealth, and considerable ambition. He rebuilt his city. He extended his territory. He moved the capital here, to this harbor, and made it shine. And when he died, his wife, who was also his sister, as was the royal custom, built him a tomb so extraordinary that every tomb built since has been measured against it. Her name was Artemisia, and she did not simply want to bury her husband. She wanted the world to know he had existed. The tomb rose 45 meters, 15 stories of marble and sculpture and ambition. Its base was a wide platform of stone. Above it, a colonnade of 36 slender Ionic columns. Above those, a stepped pyramid of 24 levels, growing narrower as it rose. And at the very top, a sculpture of 4 horses drawing a chariot, Mausolus and Artemisia together, moving forward into something. 4 of the greatest sculptors of the Greek world each took one side of the structure. They carved friezes of Greeks fighting Amazons, of heroes and gods and battles. The work was exquisite. Each panel told a story. The whole structure was a story that said, this man mattered. This love was real. Artemisia died before it was finished. Her builders continued anyway. They completed it in her honor as much as his. The tomb stood for more than 16 centuries. Earthquakes weakened it. Crusaders dismantled it, stone by stone, to build their fortress. The marble was burned for lime. The statues were carried away. And yet the structure survived in language. Mausolus gave his name to the word mausoleum, a word still used for grand tombs, still carrying the echo of what Artemisia built on that warm harbor coast. She wanted him remembered. He is. Here we leave Halicarnassus, city of love translated into stone, and we sail now to an island where a statue once stood at the entrance of a harbor and made sailors feel small in the best possible way. And so we drift on, out across the open sea. The white city by the harbor falls slowly behind us. Ahead lies only water, dark and smooth and endless, the moon laying a long silver path across it, leading us onward. There is a deep calm in a sea voyage at night. The soft rise and fall of the water beneath you, the hush of the waves against the hull, the sky above so full of stars that sea and sky seem to become one dark and gentle thing, holding you between them. Let yourself sway with that slow motion, rocked the way you were rocked long ago, before you can even remember. Far ahead, an island waits, and at the mouth of its harbor, long ago, there stood a giant of bronze that gleamed like a second sun. We are drifting toward it now, across the quiet water. There is no hurry, just drift. The island of Rhodes. Sunlight on white stone, the smell of the sea, a harbor mouth where ships come and go with the wind, grain from Egypt, timber from Lebanon, cloth from Persia, silver from the mines of the north. After a long siege, a year of war, of walls held and attacks repelled, the people of Rhodes had something to celebrate. An army had come to conquer them and had gone away without succeeding. They sold the abandoned siege equipment and used the money to build a monument. They built the Colossus, a statue of the sun god Helios, patron of their island, rising 33 meters above the harbor, taller than the Statue of Liberty without its pedestal, cast in bronze over an iron skeleton, filled with stones for ballast, built over 12 years by a sculptor named Chares, who worked methodically upward, raising earthen ramps as the figure grew. What exactly it looked like, no one can say with certainty. The popular image, legs straddling the harbor entrance, ships passing beneath, was probably invented in the Middle Ages. Most historians believe it stood on a promontory near the harbor mouth, one arm raised, looking out to sea. But however it stood, it was immense. Pliny the Elder wrote that few men could close their hands around its thumb. He meant this as a measure of scale, not of strangeness. Everything about it was beyond ordinary measure. It stood for 56 years. Then an earthquake. The statue broke at the knees and toppled. The people of Rhodes did not rebuild it. An oracle advised against it, and perhaps they listened, or perhaps the cost was simply too great. The ruins lay on the ground for nearly 800 years, enormous even in collapse, drawing travelers who came to stand next to the fallen hand and marvel. Eventually, the bronze was sold, carried away on 900 camels, ancient sources say. melted down, turned into something else. Nothing remains, not a fragment, not a single piece of bronze that anyone can point to and say with certainty, this was part of the Colossus. And yet the island remembers. The harbor still glitters in the same light. Somewhere under the water there may be pieces of the old foundations. Divers look occasionally. They find old walls, old anchors, old secrets. The sea keeps what it keeps. Here we leave Rhodes and its vanished giant, and we sail now to the great city of Alexandria, where a tower of light once guided ships safely home through the dark. And so we drift on, one last voyage, south across the sea toward Egypt. The island falls away behind us into the dark. Ahead lies the longest stretch of open water yet, calm and vast and quiet under a sky turning slowly through the hours of the night. This is the last journey of our travels. Let it be the slowest of all. The waves move gently beneath you. The warm wind carries the smell of salt and distance. There is nowhere left to be but here, drifting softly through the dark toward a far and famous shore. And then, very far ahead, you see it, a single point of light low on the horizon, steady and golden, where sea meets the coast of Egypt. A light that has guided ships home for 300 years, growing slowly brighter as we drift toward it through the gentle dark. Let it draw you in. The coast of Egypt at night. The Mediterranean is dark beyond the harbor mouth, deep black, stars reflected in it like scattered grain. Ships crossing from Greece, from Carthage, from the ports of the Levant, move carefully in this darkness. The sea near Alexandria is treacherous. Reefs and sandbars wait beneath the surface, patient as all things underwater are patient. And then, from far out at sea, sometimes 50 kilometers away, some said, a light appears. Not a small light, a fire, a great fire set on top of a tower on the island of Pharos, off the coast of Alexandria, burning in a lantern backed by polished bronze mirrors that caught and amplified and threw the light outward across the water. This is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the last of the 7 wonders, built during the reign of the Ptolemies, the Greek dynasty that ruled Egypt after Alexander, and designed by an architect named Sostratus of Cnidus, who was proud enough of his work to carve his name into the foundation stone. The lighthouse rose in 3 tiers. The bottom section was square, massive, housing the fuel stores and the machinery for lifting oil and wood to the top. The middle section was octagonal, with a balcony from which you could look out at the sea in every direction. The top was cylindrical, tapering to the lantern room where the fire burned continuously, day and night. Its total height, somewhere between 140 meters, among the tallest human structures in the world for centuries. At the very summit, a statue. Scholars still argue about which god it depicted, Zeus, Poseidon, Helios. Whoever it was, they stood above the fire, above the smoke, above the sea, visible for miles. The lighthouse served for over 1,000 years. Earthquakes damaged it, gradually. By the 14th century, it had become too ruined to function. By 1480, the Sultan used its remaining stones to build a fortress, the citadel of Kite Bay, which still stands on that same spot today. In 1968, divers began finding pieces of the lighthouse on the seafloor of Alexandria's harbor. Columns and statues and massive blocks of stone lying in the silt where earthquakes had dropped them. In recent years, teams have lifted some of these stones and scanned them digitally, building computer reconstructions of what the lighthouse may have looked like, how it was assembled, how it fell. The light is gone, the tower is gone, but underneath the water, the pieces are still there, scattered, patient, slowly being understood. And somewhere in Alexandria, in the cafes along the Corniche, in the evening when the light turns golden and the sea breeze comes in, people still look toward the harbor and feel, perhaps without knowing why, that something magnificent once stood there, that something was watching over the water, that something was saying, "You are not lost. The light is here. Come home." But stand at the foot of the lighthouse one last time. It rose from the harbor of Alexandria in 3 great tiers, square, then 8-sided, then round, climbing more than 100 meters into the sky, the tallest thing made by human hands for centuries. At its summit, a fire burned through every night, and behind the fire, a great polished mirror of bronze threw the light far out across the dark water. Sailors 30 miles out to sea could see it, a single steady point of warmth in all that blackness. Think of what that light meant. To be far from shore in the deep night, the sea vast and cold around you, unsure of your way, and then to see it, that faint, faithful glow on the horizon, telling you the harbor was there, telling you the way home was still open. We all need a light like that, something steady in the dark to steer by, and perhaps, in some quiet way, that is what these old stories are. Small fires lit long ago, still glowing faintly across the centuries, still saying to anyone who looks, "You are not lost. Rest now. The light is here." 7 wonders, 7 places. A pyramid in the Egyptian desert, still standing after 45 centuries. Gardens that may have bloomed in Babylon or Nineveh, or perhaps only in the imagination of people who needed to believe in impossible beauty. A marble temple by the sea, burned and rebuilt and then slowly taken apart. A statue of a god so overwhelming that grown men wept. A tomb built from grief and love that gave a word to every language. A bronze giant broken by an earthquake, lying in the sun for 800 years. A tower of light that guided ships through darkness for 1,000 years and then became the sea. What do they share? Scale. All of them were larger than necessary, larger than function demanded. The pyramid could have been smaller and still been a tomb. The lighthouse could have been shorter and still cast light. The statue could have been human-sized and still honored the god. But they were not. They were immense. They were made to be overwhelming, to stop the person who encountered them in their tracks and make them feel, even briefly, that human beings were capable of something extraordinary. And perhaps that is why we still talk about them, why we still make lists of wonders, why we travel to stand in front of ruins and try to imagine them whole. We want to be reminded. We want to feel that the capacity for the extraordinary is not gone, that it was real once, and might be real again, and is perhaps real now in ways we are not yet able to see. Wonder is not a childish feeling. It is one of the most important things we have. It is what keeps us looking, keeps us building, keeps us asking, what else is possible? The wonders taught us that. The sky outside is dark now. Wherever you are, in a bed, in a room, in a city or a quiet place, the same stars that shone over the Great Pyramid are shining now. The same stars that travelers on the Mediterranean used to navigate toward the lighthouse. The same stars that the workers of Olympia saw when they set down their tools for the night and looked up. Time moves strangely when you think about it this way, not as a line going forward, but as a kind of depth, as if all of it, the pyramid being built, the statue being carved, the lighthouse fire being lit, is still happening somewhere, as if the past is not gone, but only very far below. You are floating on the surface of that depth right now. Let yourself feel it, the weight of all that time beneath you, not pressing, supporting, the way deep water supports a swimmer without effort. You do not have to do anything. You do not have to understand it. Just float. Think about the Great Pyramid. 4,500 years of dawns breaking over it. 4,500 years of the wind moving across the stone. The stone is warm in the day and cool at night, and the desert does what the desert has always done, and the pyramid endures. You are connected to everyone who ever looked at it. Every traveler, every scholar, every child who heard about it for the first time and could not quite believe it. You are part of that long chain of astonishment. And in the hanging gardens, wherever they were, real or dreamed, a woman stood among green things in a dry land and breathed the cooler air and felt for a moment that she was home. That feeling is not lost. It traveled through every person who heard her story. It is here now, in the word for longing, in the way we tend to plants and windowsills, in the way we carry small pieces of the places we love. The Temple of Artemis stood for centuries as a forest of white marble by the sea. People brought offerings. People made long journeys to stand in its cool interior and feel the presence of something older than themselves. One column remains, but the act of journeying, the act of seeking, that remains in us entirely. In Olympia, the athletes ran. They threw and wrestled and raced under the same sky that holds you now. They wanted to be excellent. They wanted briefly to be more than ordinary. And in their striving, they honored something they could not name but could feel. The same thing you feel sometimes when something is so beautiful it almost hurts. Mausoleum and Artemisia, a husband and a wife, a ruler and a queen. One died, and the other built him a mountain of marble so that the world would not forget he had been here. The mountain is gone, but the love that made it, the refusal to let a person simply disappear, that is one of the most human things there is. You have felt it too. The Colossus of Rhodes stood broken on the ground for 800 years, and people still came to see it. Even in ruin, it was worth the journey. Perhaps especially in ruin. There is something in a broken, magnificent thing that speaks to us more honestly than a perfect one. And the lighthouse. The lighthouse burned so that sailors would not be lost, so that people crossing dark water would have something to orient themselves by, a fixed point of brightness in all that moving darkness. That is what a good story does too. That is what tonight was. A light to help you find your way towards sleep. Your breathing is slower now. Notice it, in and out, easy and even. The kind of breathing that happens when the body knows it is safe and is beginning to let go. The pyramid stands in the dark beyond the eastern horizon. The desert is cool. The stars are dense and white and motionless above it. A night bird calls somewhere far out in the sand. One long note and then silence. The stone holds all of it. The dark and the stars and the silence and the centuries. It does not struggle against time. It simply is. There is nowhere left to travel now. The journey is behind you, all of it, and there is nothing ahead but rest. Let yourself sink a little deeper, the way a stone sinks slowly through still water, without effort, without hurry, drifting gently down and down into the quiet. Each breath takes you lower, in and out, and a little further down. There is no bottom to reach, nothing to do but keep softening, keep loosening, keep letting go. The weight of your body grows kind now, your arms heavy and warm, your legs sinking into the surface beneath you, the small muscles of your face going still, even the quiet effort of holding a single thought. Let that go too. The room is dark and safe around you. The night is long, and there is so much of it left, all of it yours, all of it for sleep. You do not have to wait for anything. You do not have to listen anymore. The words can wash over you now, soft and far away, like the sound of water heard from another room. Let your eyes stay closed. Let the thoughts that are still moving begin to slow. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to remember, nothing to plan. Tonight, you are a traveler who has returned from a long journey. The road was good. The things you saw were real and strange and beautiful. And now you are home. Home, in the dark, in the warmth, in the particular quiet of a night that has given you everything it had to give. Sleep is very close now. You can feel it, that heaviness in the limbs, that softening behind the eyes, that sense of the world becoming less distinct, less urgent. Let it come. The pyramid stands. The desert breathes. The stars turn their long, slow arc across the night. And you are drifting, gently, without effort, into a sleep that is deep and dark and full of rest. Good night, dear listeners. The wonders are still there, in stone and memory, in the deep earth and the deep sea, in the stories that people have been telling each other for thousands of years to remind themselves of what is possible. They will be there when you wake. Sleep well.